If you hear any strange noises, they're doing a little carpentry work next door. I don't know what they're doing. They're trying, I think a group of them are trying to break out a television. I don't know. I was just thinking some of my first memories in life were looking up at that crackling television screen as just but a bare infant. Well, not a bare infant, a mere infant. And seeing the smiling face of Captain Kangaroo, and to think that today the captain would be here. Hello, Captain.
How are you? You trying to tell me you were an infant in 1955?
1955, there I was, perhaps 6 months old. Toilet trained, maybe, but hardly legible.
Your credibility is on the line.
Was it 55?
55, we started.
23 years.
23, starting actually next Monday. Today was the last broadcast in the old year. Monday begins the 24th broadcast year.
I won't be the first, but I'd like to be one of the most sincere to offer you congratulations.
Thank you.
And 23 more good years.
We're looking forward to it. I'm still, well, I'm not in shape. That would be not accurate, but I'm looking forward to it.
Interesting question. An interesting thing came to my mind. You talk about 23 years. I am, if not a student, at least I'm a fan of the golden era of radio. And I collect things like Fred Allen and broadcasts and so on. And it's fascinating to me that's the longevity of some of those shows. Allen and Benny and so on the air for 20, 30 years. Now, television, entirely different thing. Television viewers are fickle, or seem to be. New shows come and go. Why are you still here 23 years later when George Gobel is gone and Pinky Lee is gone and Milton Berle is gone and Red Skelton is gone? All television folk, people who had enormous followings, and then people tired of them. But not, if anything, I would think you're stronger today, in terms of love, because that's what it is, love.
Well, perhaps it could be answered, explained this way. This morning, somewhere in St. Louis or Shrewsbury or Clayton or wherever, a 2-year-old went into the kitchen and said to Mother, "There's a new program on television, and it's called Captain Kangaroo." And Mother, of course, who's probably 21 or 22 or 23, and did watch when she was 2 or 3, sort of smiled and said, "Oh, a new program called Captain Kangaroo." So that we're not 23 years old to the basic audience, those children under 5 or 6 or 7 years of age. We're new this morning, or a year old, or 3 years old, or what. So that explains part of it. Secondly, I think we've changed. I think we've kept up with the times. As I think philosophically, we remain pretty much the same. But the technology of television is vastly different today than it was in 55. We were live. We walked wherever we had to go, and we padded whenever we had to wait for an actor to run around behind the set. Those golden days, which were not so golden, even in retrospect. But today, things are very different. We make use of tape and editing and all kinds of special effects. It's more like making motion pictures, really, than the old television. So I think we've kept up with the technology of it. That's helped a lot.
Well, it seems to me that every television station at one time had a live human being, Ho-Ho the Clown and Cowboy Bob and so on. They're gone now. There are no television children's personalities on a local basis. Everything is for the kids, seems to be animation today. And there are so very few, aside from you and Sesame Street. And, of course, I don't have young children, so I wouldn't necessarily be aware of them. But you just seem to be kind of ageless.
Well, I think, too, that is most of the programs you're talking about, the kinds of programs you're talking about, were on in the late afternoon. I started, before Captain, 8 years. I had 8 years experience by the time Captain came along. I started in 1947 on a thing called Howdy Doody.
Were you on Howdy Doody?
Sure, I was the original Clarabell. I was Clarabell for 5 years, from 47 to 52.
Yeah.
So you see all those afternoon programs, Howdy Doody, Rudy Kazooie, and so on the network, Lucky Pup, which most people don't remember today. And then there were a lot of local programs in the afternoon. But then I guess the economics of television changed, so that time became very valuable, and is now devoted to soap operas or game shows or Mike Douglas or Dinah Shore or something of that sort. And then the news starts early at 5 or 6 o'clock in most markets. So there's no room for children in the afternoon, and that's kind of a sad thing. I think the school-age child needs that kind of program. We need to serve them better. You see it in some of in the areas like New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Los Angeles, where there are 7 stations on the independent stations and on network stations. You see some children's programming in the afternoon, not usually of very high quality, usually the old Saturday morning animation that the networks have gotten rid of for good reason, and it's laced together by Ho-Ho the Clown that you were talking about before, and that's about all we have in the afternoon for young kids, and that's kind of a pity.
I don't think there is one here, a live children's personality any longer, and there was. Well, we're going to take a minute out and then continue. Captain, one thing before, because I don't want to forget this. Where did the name Captain Kangaroo come from?
I have no idea.
It's nice talking to you. Fuck off.
No, I'm not really.
Any guy comes on my program, it's being Clarabell for 7 years.
I'm not trying to be flip, really.
Yeah.
It is a real problem because we never knew that we were going to be some kind of institution when we started.
Sure.
So there are a lot of things that we did, a lot of characters we developed, and things that we did, like including naming him Captain Kangaroo. Going back a few years after we started, we tried to put it all together. How did we ever reach there? Well, we thought that the place where we were was kind of a museum. We gave him the rank of captain because he was the guide. He had large pockets at that time, very large pockets in his costume, from which he pulled almost everything. Pockets similar to the pouch in a kangaroo. Again, alliteration seemed important at that time. Howdy Doody, Rudy Kazooty. The names of children's shows were alliterative. Captain Kangaroo was alliterative, and that's the best story I can come up with.
Was it Captain Kangaroo from the first broadcast?
Oh, yes. No question about that. But I really don't know where, not much thought came. You know, people think, well, you think of the name of a show, then you decide what you're going to do in the show. The name is the very last thing you think of. You think of everything you're going to do, the format, the elements, everything that goes into it, the characters, and then almost before you go on the air, somebody says, well, what do you think we ought to call this thing? And that's really the best story I can come up with on how Captain got his name.
Would you take any other directions if you could go back over that whole 23-year period? Is there any place that you feel that you would have made a different turn, a different change, a policy decision, a big one? I'm sure there are little things that you'd change, but if you could start the whole thing over again, would you do it about the same way?
I think I would. I think if I had made different decisions, and the temptation was there to make decisions differently, there were a lot of, pressures, commercial, realistic pressures to do things differently. And if I hadn't been so very pure, I guess, I was young and foolish and really didn't know what I was doing most of the time. But the decisions were right. They were made on, I think, an idealistic base. And actually, that was probably the best business decision I could have made, because I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't kept those ideals. All those other shows that really didn't care that much about children made the commercial decisions and are no longer here. So in the end, they were very tough decisions in a commercial sense to make then. In retrospect, they were the best business decisions I could ever have made.
How many television shows have you done as Captain Kangaroo? Individual shows. Have you ever figured it out?
Oh, yeah, we keep a very good record. As captain, there are 6,500, where I guess we're just starting 6,500 and something now. Yeah. And then there were some other series, Mr. Mayor, which was part of the Captain series, and, of course, going back to Howdy Doody, a couple of local shows I did in New York, plus everything. I'm somewhat over 10,000 television shows, personally. I think that's probably more than anybody over 31 years.
10,000.
Yeah. I'm tired.
Well, I don't blame you for that. Very well. When I was a kid, long before there was a Captain Kangaroo, we used to sit on the curb in front of the neighborhood where we lived in Omaha, Nebraska, and we used to know all the cars that went by.
Oh, I did Dodge. I did too.
That's Plymouth.
Yeah. I did too.
Yeah. Couldn't do it today.
No, well, there were fewer models in those days, too. It was a lot easier for the kids of those days to track the cars, to know them.
I knew who the heavyweight champion of the world was at all times.
I did, too. I'm
a little confused today.
I knew a little bit about baseball in those days, too, but I'm a little confused. Hey, there's been a great race between New York and St. Louis. No, between New York and St. Louis, between the Mets and the Cardinals. And I think you guys are losing. I think the Mets are going to end up in the basement for sure. You guys really blew that one.
We've had a terribly disappointing year. We've had a lot of things go wrong. We made some big mistakes. Going to the ballpark a lot of times is a big mistake. We've not had a good year baseball-wise. The hockey Blues did not have a good year, and the football Cardinals have not started off effectively.
Yeah.
It's just been, for sports fans here, kind of a dismal year.
Well, I know why. You see, I sent you my daughter last year to study law here at WashU, and as soon as she got here, the Blues started down.
Yeah.
And they haven't recovered. And she said, "Well, wait until the baseball season comes along," and that didn't help. And I don't know what's with the Cardinals. They can still recover. I mean, that's a crazy year in football. Everybody is
really
there are very few undefeated teams.
It's been disappointing for us. I don't know. Blessed is he who expects nothing. And I don't know. Anyway, Captain Kangaroo is here. It's 25 minutes after 10 o'clock. Oh. We have Captain Kangaroo. Why are you in town? I didn't even ask about that. I know you're not just here to visit your daughter.
Well, I do a lot of that. I do come in, but then I don't do very much.
I saw you one night out to dinner, and I almost went up to you and simply said, "I'm an admirer of yours." You were having dinner at the old Rich and Charlie's Trattoria over by the arena.
Right, that's right, yeah.
And this is a couple years ago, and I walked by your table once, and I said, I know who that is. And I was going to go up, and I thought, no, I always feel like a fool.
Oh, come on.
So
I wish
I didn't.
I had. Yeah.
No, I didn't.
No, I sneak in quite a bit because my daughter, as I said before, is studying law at WashU, and I do come in on a Friday night and spend a day and a half or so and run back. But this time I'm in to speak tomorrow morning at an early childhood conference, the Crucial Early Years Conference, which is sponsored by the University of Missouri and the Ferguson-Florissant School District, and it's going to be at the McClure North High School all day tomorrow. I'm the keynote speaker first thing in the morning in the little question and answer session, and they have some marvelous speakers. Most of the people who will be there will be professionals, educators, early childhood educators, some other professionals, health professionals and the like, who deal with young people. I'm just delighted. I guess we'll have 600 or 700 there, and I'm just delighted to address a group of people like this because I do have a more than passing interest in young people, and love to talk to real committed professionals.
Are you of a mind with some of us, not necessarily me, but are you of a mind that we have made some terrible mistakes in terms of this permissive thing that, well, I guess they dump it on poor Dr. Spock with some regularity now, but are you of a mind that we kind of lost control and that the youngsters are suffering for it today?
Well, I'm not sure.
It's a big question.
Yeah, it really is. It's a complex question, and I'm not sure that the permissive question is really the reason why. Yes, I do think we have failed our children. We have failed them. I think to a large extent, it's not so much permissiveness as it is that we're too busy today. The world is very different than it was a quarter of a century ago.
Yes.
Our lifestyle is very different. We're all very busy.
Have changed.
Yeah, our priorities have changed. We come home at night, and it doesn't matter what socio-economic group we happen to fall in. We can be wearing a blue collar or a white collar, and we come home and we drink a beer or a martini or whatever it is, but we don't seem to have time, particularly for the very young child. And that's where it's really all at with a child from 1.5 to 5.5 or 6 years of age. By that time, you've made it or not made it with your child. When she gets to be 14 and she gets into some kind of a problem, and you wonder why she's not talking to you.
This happened Saturday.
Yeah. Why should that be any big surprise? She's not talking to you. You've never talked to that child. So it all happens with very young children, and we just don't have time for them. I don't know. I guess our life is different. The old family round table has now been moved to McDonald's and Burger King, and we don't get the chance for conversation, and the automobile takes us miles and miles to the most super shopping center, but away from each other. And we're just too busy for kids today, and I think that's really is a simple an answer, and it isn't simple at all.
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I remember I bought Glenn Doman's book years ago called How to Teach Your Baby to Read, and I sat down with my 2-year-old boy, and by the time he was 2 years and 3 months old, he could read 40 or 50 words. When you talk about those first years, they start very early, and so important.
Yeah, but the important thing was not that you were able to teach him 40 or 50 words at a certain level. The important thing was you were spending some time with him, you see, and so you build a relationship that will last you forever. I mean, he can be through with college, and he can be 28 or 29 and still talking to you and asking you for advice. That's the thrilling part of getting a little older. I'm experiencing it now with my young people. It's really great. That's what you've got to do, and it really doesn't matter. You know, I think parents today are pressured to a large extent when they do want to spend time. Their natural instincts for parenting have been smothered under layers of psychology. We can see a new book published every week on how to do this, how to teach your child how to get into Harvard before he gets into nursery school, how she will make it to Stanford before she gets into kindergarten. And, you know, it's the old Sputnik syndrome. We want our kids to be brighter, smarter, read better. And in the end, all that's involved is motivating kids. And that's what we're not doing. We're not motivating them. We're not giving them a value system. And that's the bottom line. If we motivate them and give them a value system, they'll learn how to read, and they'll know how to read. If we read, they'll read. If we watch Charlie's Angels, they're going to watch Charlie's Angels. And we're the models. We're the supreme models for our young people.
Mm-hmm. My son is 15 and is bigger than I am. He's 6'2", and we still kiss and hug.
Yeah, I do too.
And I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world.
Sir, I have a son who's now 27, and we still kiss and hug, and we're not the least bit shy about it at all. It's a real warm and natural kind of thing for us to do.
They're neat, kids are.
Oh, they're great. It's the greatest pleasure in the world.
I would take money for mine, but I don't know how much. I'd have to haggle over there. We know what you are. We're just arguing price. That old story. I'd have to decide. Where's the sports? He's busy? Well, I don't care if that's okay. I just wondered where he is. Because normally we have a sportscaster come in here and tell us about a tennis tournament that we never heard of in West Virginia and a golf tournament going on that we don't want to know about.
Hand me the copy. I'll do it. Yeah.
I'm afraid you'd charge.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to me that you when we were talking before, you said that Captain Kangaroo has been flexible enough to change through the years and stay with things. But you talked about, when you said that, you talked about technical things, about how it used to be, a very simple live thing and you walked everywhere you went. But what about the basics? Never mind the camera techniques and the visual effects and so on. Are 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds today fascinated, entertained by the same thing they were that Captain Kangaroo presented 23 years ago?
I think basically yes, but I think if we presented them today in the way that we did 23 years ago, we'd fail. I think that their level of sophistication, and that's a surface thing to me, it's a veneer, maybe a lot greater than the children of 23 years ago. I think to a large extent because of television. They're much more visually oriented than the kids of 23 years ago. But basically, they're the same kids. They want the same answers. Who am I? Am I important? Am I valuable? The motivating questions that are really that were asked by children of 25 years ago too. So again, I think the differences in children are there. They're observable, and we tend to think that they're important and basic. I don't think so. I think they're technical differences in the children. Basically, they're the same.
Mm-hmm. I have a recurring nightmare, and that is that I'm doing a television talk show, and that Ella Fitzgerald and Tony Bennett are my guests, and I wake up with my hands sweating and my hand shaking. I would guess in 10,000 appearances, 1 or 2 terrible things have happened to Captain Kangaroo that might have you wake up in the middle of the night. Is anything that you can think of that's repeatable? Did your captain ever lose his pants in the middle of a broadcast or anything? Has anything terrible ever happened to the old captain?
I have the most marvelous psychiatrist who enables me to forget anything negative. No, the old captain has never lost his trousers, nor did the young captain ever lose his trousers.
Yeah.
No, we've had things that really are not they're not that funny for the audience.
Yeah.
Looking back, we think they're funny, and they were funny in live days, but they were kind of tragic because you'd build a marvelous make-believe world, and then the stagehand would walk across the camera, the set would fall down, an elephant would walk through the set. I mean, we've had seals loose in the studio, just pandemonium, and it was funny on one level, but at the same time, you're trying to build a very make-believe, a marvelous world for young people. It kind of takes the edge off it, and so those things still happen. Stagehands still walk in front of cameras, seals still get lost. All of those things happen, but we're all taped and they're edited out, so the integrity of the program is preserved for our young people.
Yeah. You must be today. I don't know if you probably
37.
You must be 37 easily. You must be one of the most recognizable faces in the world. Did you ever think about that?
I don't really look like the captain, precisely like the captain. The captain's hair is different from mine. I wear a wig. Yeah, because you expected to see me. All right, you did. You proved your point because before you said you saw me in a restaurant and recognized me. Okay, and that is happening more and more because when I first started, I had very dark hair and a lot more of it, and so I looked very different from the captain. Now, as I'm getting older, I certainly am getting to look more and more like the captain. And I am.
You mean to tell me that you can walk down the street or walk into an airport or restaurant and not be recognized?
Oh yeah. Usually when I start to talk, if I start to talk, the voice is probably put the voice together with the face, and
and then when you pull a rabbit out of your coat pocket,
that helps. That'll
do it.
Or if I ask the waitress for carrots or an extra carrot or something of that sort, then she knows right away. She's clued in.
I find it hard to believe that everybody in the world doesn't look at you and say, "I know you."
Well, a lot of people do that, but they're not really sure because the hair is a little different, and of course I'm not wearing the red jacket. If I wear the red jacket, I get thrown out of a lot of places. But if somebody says, "Hey, you know who you look like? You look like that guy on TV, Captain Kangaroo," and depending on the circumstances, I might say, "I've been told that a lot. I've been told that very often," or "Yes, I am," and. If there's a young child there, I really don't want to be recognized with a young child because, why tell a young child that the captain doesn't wear a red jacket and he doesn't look there's an actor with a wig on? And let's preserve those illusions.
Sure.
That's one of our problems today. Hey, we can't wait to get to our favorite 3-year-old and destroy the Santa Claus illusion. Did you know that Santa Claus is really Uncle Charlie dressed up in a red suit? We got to be the first one to tell that.
And who does that?
Yeah, lots of parents do it today because we're on this great big kick, no more fantasy. We've got to let kids know what the real world is all about.
What do you mean?
Well, fantasy is what the real world is all about. You and I know that. And I think,
what do you mean there isn't any Santa
Exactly.
Claus?
That's what I'm telling you. They lie to their
children. Here and lay that on me.
I agree with you. I'm 100%. Hey, my son was 8 years old before we even discussed it. And he came very delicately to me one Christmas, like around at 8 or 9 years of age, because he was afraid he'd be destroying my illusions.
Yeah.
He had found out he didn't want to destroy my illusions. So that's great.
remember telling my son that there was no Santa Claus, and he couldn't handle it. His wife caught on. Well, after 23 years, it's kind of a silly question to ask if you're fed up with little ones, but I wonder if somewhere along the line, talking to children day in and day out, you don't sometimes have a hankering to talk to contemporaries. I mean, professionally, I know you go home and talk to contemporaries, you walk around the studio and talk to contemporaries. Have you ever reached a point where you not felt silly, but got to where you were kind of tired of kids?
I don't think so. I think probably it goes back to my philosophy. I respect kids, and the kind of programming that we do, I think, displays that respect. I don't think that we have to look down on children. In fact, quite to the contrary. I speak to them in very much the same way I would my peers, and I may occasionally modify the vocabulary that I would use, recognizing that their experience and their education is not as great as yours is. But basically, I think they can understand the same sort of things that we might talk about. So I think that makes it possible for me, if I do respect them, not to tire of them. And there's great variety in what I do. Every day is somewhat different. Different people coming in, doing different things, different subject matter. So it's not like doing a Broadway show, the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge every day. Every one of those shows has been different from the other. So no, I've never. I've had my days when I haven't felt well. I mean, you've had those days too.
Sure.
fellow writing for the newspaper or building an automobile. Everybody has those days. But other than that, no, I've never tired of it.
The Captain Kangaroo, not image so much, but that has extended over into other things, into publications, periodicals, hasn't it, and games and products and.
Well, not as much as most programs of our sort. Things that come naturally from the program, records, music, books, and that sort of thing. Not so much in the way of games or clothing. We have a rule that we've always followed, and we think it's a good rule. If somebody needs our name to sell a product, we don't want to be associated with it.
That's very good.
You see, and so if it is a high-quality product in and of itself, and the manufacturer wishes to be associated with us, then we probably would like to be associated with them. Usually, if you don't need Captain Kangaroo or Sesame Street to sell your product, you don't use them. So we've limited obviously, we've limited our income from that kind of source. But in the end, I think it's been better for the program, and it really shows our respect to the audience. I don't want to rip anybody off with a T-shirt that has my picture on it that is not of quality for the price you paid for it. Why do that? I won't be around very much longer if I do much of that.
No, you certainly wouldn't have made it this far, would you?
Right.
Yeah. Right. Integrity. I think there are some who say it doesn't exist in media today, but it does.
Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. It surely is. Yeah.
Our guest has been Captain Kangaroo. You've been a neat guy to come in and talk to us.
Thank you, Jack. I enjoyed it.
I hope you have another great 23 years. I really do.
Thank you. Can I stay to finish my coffee?
You don't have to know right now. Listen, we got about 20 seconds left, and Clarence is taping all this. I wonder if you would mind doing a little tape recording that we could use in the future. Would you just say this for me? I'm Captain Kangaroo, and I wish somebody'd find me a girl.
How are you going to use it? Would you sign this piece of paper, please?
We'll be back in a few minutes. Coming up on 11 o'clock, our Hollywood reporter shortly here. This is KMOX Radio in St. Louis. It is 11 o'clock.